Whether you are renovating a home, building a custom home, or just want to upgrade the trim in your home, there's certain things you need to look for hiring a trim contractor to assure the longevity and the quality and look of the trim you're looking for. There's always things you need to look for in terms of what they're using to fill holes, what they're using for caulking, making sure they're gluing all their corners to make sure that the product will last as long as possible. There are two ways to do your inside corners. One's a miter joint, one's a cope joint. The difference between the two is that a miter joint gets glued together, so if you're seeing miter joints that aren't tight together and glued by the contractor, those will eventually crack and not give you the look, seamless look you're looking for in terms of your trim. The cope joint allows for expansion and contraction. Both ways are acceptable ways to install trim, just depending on the contractor. Coping is usually a little bit more time consuming, might cost a little bit more, but the end result might be less cracking and last longer. Outside corners, you always want to make sure everything is glued and nailed together. When your wood starts shifting, you don't want your joint to open up. Once that joint opens up, it's very tough to fix, and you can never really make it look like one seamless piece after it's been repaired. Other thing you want to look for is the type of caulking is being used. You want to use something that's flexible and paintable. Caulking always needs to be painted, because if you do not paint it, it attracts dirt and dust and it almost sticks to it. So you always want to make sure that once the product is installed, it gets painted. You want something flexible, because the wood behind your walls, the studs, they're always in movement, and if you don't have something that's flexible, it's going to break either the wall or the trim, and then you're going to have that hairline crack going across, and it doesn't look seamless, and that's not what you're paying for. You want it to last as long as possible. The different types of trims are baseboard and shoe molding. There's casing and crown molding. So casing is around your window and doors. The miters are done differently here because you're mitering the face and not the angle together. So again, you always want to make sure those angles and miters are glued and nailed, pinned. So a lot of times we'll use a smaller gauge, so a 23 gauge nailer, to keep that corner nice and tight. That way it will never open up on you. When it comes to crown's a little more complicated to install, a little more time consuming. The angles start getting tricky because you're installing something on an angle. So you want to make sure that everything is as tight as possible and glued together, so that way things aren't opening up, cracking. And then once things open up and crack, you know, the look isn't there, that seamless look, that look of why you installed the trim is not there anymore. In terms of filling your nail holes, I would always suggest something that is non-shrink. Once you install it, if you paint over it and it shrinks, then you're always going to see that indent. Again, the point is to have it look as smooth as possible. So a couple of examples are Timbermate or Light Patch is what we use. They're quick and easy to sand. So we want to make sure that once it dries, it gives you that nice flat look. The goal is that once your contractor or your trim installer or your carpenter leaves site, you don't need to worry about the material cracking and opening up. You know, you're paying for a product that will alter the look of your home, so you want to make sure it lasts as long as possible as well. In terms of costing for installing trim, you're looking at $1 or $2, maybe $250 on the high end a lineal foot to install your trim. That doesn't include the supply. And then when you're looking at crown, could be more, could be $4 or $5, depending on ceiling heights, type of crown, thickness. So there's a lot of factors that come into play. Same when you're trimming out a window with the casing. If you're doing sills at the bottom with skirts and overhangs, and you know, you can do 3, 4, 5-piece trims, could drive the price up. But basic, you know, 4-inch baseboard, you're looking $2 a lineal foot to install. So it's not too expensive, but it definitely changes the look of the house. When it comes to choosing material for your trim, there's different types of wood you can use. So you can use hardwood, so oaks, butternut, things like that. You can also get pine, pre-primed materials such as MDF. So depending on the look you want, if you're doing stain grade, install and supply is going to be much more expensive. Can't really fill gaps and holes with stain grade, so your hardwoods and things that you're just going to stain. Things that you can paint, a little bit of caulking, filling in the nail holes, that can all be hidden with the paint. So something to take into consideration, making sure that if you are doing stain grade materials, that your carpenter has experience with the stain grade, so that way the look you're hoping for is achieved with nice joinery and being able to hide fasteners rather than try to fill them. Hey, this is Richard with The Conscious Builder. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to get more information, see more content, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and we'll see you there.